Hello and welcome. You're watching To The Point. Today was supposed to be the second day of the demonetization debate in the Rajya Sabha and the first in the Lok Sabha, but neither house functioned at all. The opposition says this is because the Prime Minister wasn't present and they don't see the point of a discussion without him. At the same time, the government has announced some controversial and even disturbing amendments in the amount of money you can exchange. Whilst the CII president has said that it's possible India's retail trade has fallen by 50%. Finally, Mamata Banerjee and Arvind Kejriwal have demanded a rollback in 3 days, and if it doesn't happen, they are threatening nationwide protests. So tonight we look at the situation facing India on the 9th day of demonetization. My guests are BJD MP Jay Panda, CPM MP Mohammad Salim, Shrimani Akali Dal MP Naresh Gujral, Congress MP and spokesperson Abhishek Singhvi, and BJP MP Kirat Somaiya. Kirat Somaiya, today was supposed to be the second day of the demonetization debate in the Rajya Sabha and the first in the Lok Sabha, but neither house functioned at all. The opposition says this is because the Prime Minister wasn't present and they don't see the point of a discussion without him. To many people, it seems as if Mr. Modi is deliberately keeping away from a discussion. Some people even say he's running away. How do you respond to that impression?
Yesterday, we were quite happy that in Rajya Sabha the debate started. All the top political leaders participated yesterday. So the debate actually went ahead. Today it was expected that in Lok Sabha the same thing will be repeated. But Karan, I am confused. The Rajya Sabha can start the debate. In Lok Sabha, opposition wants to stall the debate. In Rajya Sabha on second day, they start demanding that without PM we will not go ahead. I can't understand what is the issue. Issue is the debate. If we have to correct, we have to take more effort or improvement, we would like to welcome the opposition can contribute. But if opposition just want to stall the debate, we think that we want suggestions from opposition.
Very quickly, Mr. Somaiya, don't you believe the Prime Minister's presence in the upper house is essential, particularly because this is such an important issue?
No, yesterday, without Prime Minister debate initiated, in Lok Sabha, it was the first day they could have initiated.
Well, yesterday,
So
Ghulam
I
Nabi
think
Azad
that
and
the
Mayawati
opposition is
demanded
little
the
bit
Prime Minister's
confused.
presence, but he never came.
But then also debate went ahead.
Okay.
In Lok Sabha, they did not initiate the debate. They had some different excuse they were given that we won't debate in this particular rule and not under 193.
All right.
So that's why we are not able to understand what opposition want.
Let me put your
in demonetization.
Let me put your point. Let me put your point to Abhishek Singhvi. Mr. Singhvi, on the other hand, the finance minister was present and willing to speak, and when he speaks, he does so on behalf of the entire government. Why is that not sufficient for a responsible discussion?
Karan, this is an earth-shattering decision affecting 86% of the entire currency being sucked out. Everybody knows it's the Prime Minister's personal baby. In fact, there is very grave doubt as to whether the Finance Minister was involved in the decision till the last minute or not.
But what is
Probably
that grave
3 or 4
doubt based
people knew of
upon?
it. It's the Prime Minister's baby.
What is
Yes.
that grave doubt based upon?
Let
Because
me complete.
your objection
Now,
to the
on
finance
that-
minister ending the discussion is presumably
Obviously
based on
there
that
is no
doubt.
proof.
What's the doubt based on?
No. 1 minute. Let me first answer your first question and answer your second question also. Let me first answer why the Prime Minister had to be there. The Prime Minister, whose baby it is, yesterday the demand is made. The Prime Minister doesn't have the courtesy to say that he may come today at some time or that he wants a date fixed for his presence. The Prime Minister is not abroad. The Prime Minister is available. He has been speaking everywhere. He has had moist eyes. He has had emotion and histrionics. Tell me one good reason why he can't come to his own parliament, either house. That's the real question. As far as the Finance Minister is concerned, there is obviously no proof. Normally, legitimately in all normal governments, he would be privy to it from the beginning. But this is our view, and therefore even if the finance minister is there, that's not the point at all. The buck stops at the Prime Minister on such an important thing, and the way he has spoken about it makes it very clear to the whole world that it is his exclusive baby. Whether or not the Prime Minister, the Finance Minister in the loop or not, till the very end, irrespective of that.
Naresh Gujral, let's set aside the allegation or the speculation that the Finance Minister wasn't in the loop and therefore the Finance Minister can't be the person who talks about this on behalf of the government, because that's pure speculation. Let's put that aside. But there is a very strong point that Abhishek Singhvi makes when he says that the Prime Minister's presence is necessary. And I'll tell you what it is. This demonetization is perhaps the biggest problem India has faced for decades, if not for generations. Every single Indian, bar none, is affected. Beyond duty, doesn't the Prime Minister have a moral-bound and honor-bound commitment to be present in Parliament and to speak, particularly when the opposition, that represents in a sense 60% of the country, are demanding him to be there? Isn't this a moral issue more than just political?
Karan, let me tell you, yesterday the leaders met twice. I was in both the meetings. One meeting was before the Parliament session started, and there it was decided that since the Congress and the other opposition parties were demanding a lot of time for this debate, the government's viewpoint was take as much time as you wish, and that is why 2 days were set aside for this debate. We met again at about 1 o'clock in the afternoon. At that stage, they did raise the demand that Prime Minister should be present. However, the debate did continue at 2 o'clock and went on till 6 o'clock, and most leaders participated in the debate. The fact of the matter is that after that debate yesterday, the opposition was on the back foot. They really had no case, and they were being exposed before the nation. That is why this new demand came up today that the Prime Minister must be present. As far as your question is concerned, if they had let the House function, perhaps the Prime Minister would have come to reply to the debate, both in the Rajya Sabha and the Lok Sabha. But they did not even give a chance. From the morning they had made up their mind that they must disrupt both houses. And it's very unfortunate that they don't want to listen to the Prime Minister or the Finance Minister. And now they keep speculating that the Finance Minister didn't know or the Home Minister didn't know. All this is totally ridiculous.
You know, there's an important point Mohammad Salim made there by Naresh Gujral. Thursday, after all, is the day the Prime Minister usually sits in the Rajya Sabha. If the opposition had let the House function, there's a very good chance he would have done what he usually does every time Parliament functions and come. But by ensuring that the House didn't function and it was disrupted, the Prime Minister can actually turn around and say, you denied me the opportunity to come. So in a sense, hasn't the opposition through disruption faulted itself?
Other way around. Yesterday, Naresh Agarwal ji is saying that Rajya Sabha functioned, time allotted, debate was on, Prime Minister was in the building, but Parliament is not the Prime Minister's chamber. He says it's a temple of democracy. He bowed his head when he first entered. But the Garbhagriha is the house where it is being discussed. But he avoided to attend both the houses, neither in Rajya Sabha nor in Lok Sabha. So how come today in Lok Sabha we asked for adjournment motion? If the same adjournment motion you accepted in Rajya Sabha, the same government, why you disagree in Lok Sabha? Mr. Somaiya was telling the opposition did not know. We wanted discussion. We were prepared for that. But your leader of the house did not turn up. You did not agree for adjournment motion. And in between, you changed the policy from 4,500 to 4,000. So when the policies are being taken up,
to 2,000.
you come in the house. You say it's the Prime Minister's masterstroke. Prime Minister waited for all these things. So he should face front. He should lead in the front. By the front, not avoiding the Parliament.
You know, before I go to Jay Panda,
to the Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha.
Before I go to Jay Panda, I want to take up the point that Mohammad Salim has made with Kirat Somaiya, because Kirat Somaiya, like Mr. Salim is also a Lok Sabha MP. The truth is the Lok Sabha didn't function today because you wouldn't permit an adjournment motion, whereas you permitted one in the Rajya Sabha, so not permitting it in the Lok Sabha looks contradictory. And secondly, you claim the problem with the adjournment motion is that a vote will happen, but you know that this is a vote the opposition will lose. So why worry? On both counts, your argument for not permitting a discussion looks as if you're the ones who are stalling, and stalling on rather weak grounds.
Actually, I could not understood. In Rajya Sabha, if my friend said that the debate started on adjournment, then why they waited today? Why they stalled the debate? What is your intention? If on one side you say adjournment motion, then who is to respond on the behalf of government? It is the government to decide. So actually
But the point I'm making, Mr. Somaiya, is by not agreeing to an adjournment motion in the Lok Sabha, you've actually put yourself in the wrong, because if there had been a vote as there has to be on an adjournment motion, you'd have won it hands down. Therefore, what do you lose by agreeing to it in the Lok Sabha? Make that concession to the opposition, look big-hearted, and have a debate which you'll win.
That's what I wanted to tell. What is the intention of opposition? In Lok Sabha, they are coming out daily with adjournment, daily. Now, if you started the debate in the Rajya Sabha, on the second day, you stall the debate. So, how one can understand what is their intention?
All right.
You want debate, start debate.
Let me put it like this, Jayapanda. The controversy over what happened in the Rajya Sabha and the controversy over what didn't happen and failed to happen in the Lok Sabha is endless. But it seems to many that today politics has taken precedence over the need for debate, and consequently scoring points is more important than actually tackling the many problems of demonetization. And at the end of the day, as both these parties score points against each other, it's the interest of the Indian people that's lost and forgotten.
Well, first of all, prime ministers intervene at the end of debates, and it is customary for many prime ministers to monitor the debates from their office and come to the House when it is their turn to participate, having heard everything. So I don't think this is so unusual, but let me not get stuck on the issue of when the prime minister should come to the House. You are right, we must have a debate, but I wish to assert something. As you know, my party, the Biju Janata Dal, has taken the stand that it is possible to both support the principle of banning old 500 and 1000 rupee notes, and at the same time to also be sensitive to the difficulties that people are facing and to take steps to alleviate their difficulties during the transition, which is what we've been doing in our panchayat offices and reviews by the Chief Minister in Odisha and so on and so forth. I think this entire black and white discussion, pardon the pun, of whether this is a good thing or a bad thing, loses sight of the main objective that the entire country, including all the opposition, was baying for the blood of the government for not taking more action against black money. So the principle ought to be lauded. More could and should be done to expedite the transition so that it minimizes the difficulties of citizens.
Naresh Gujral, let's then come to the second subject I want to discuss today, the so-called relief measures that the Economic Affairs Secretary announced on television in the morning. Now, the present exchange limit of 4,500 has been reduced to just 2,000, and it can only be done once. Mr. Das says, and I'm quoting his exact words, this will ensure a large number of people are able to reach the counter to exchange their notes. But surely, indelible ink was meant to do that. How can limiting the quantity you can exchange reduce the numbers in the queue?
Karan, it is well known that mules were being used to exchange money by those who had hoarded black money. And this was happening in almost every metropolitan city. In order to contain that, after all, the whole intent of the government is to control the black money. But if you can use mules and convert your black into white, or converted into new notes, which will still remain black, government must take action against those steps. So it was basically to contain this kind of activity. As far as announcing new steps, I demanded in the Rajya Sabha that since it's a marriage season, anybody who's getting married should be allowed, or their family members should be allowed to withdraw up to 2 lakhs. And I'm very glad the government has today announced that 2,50,000 can be withdrawn from the bank in one go by a family that has a marriage going on. But so the government is taking proactive steps, but please don't forget the capacity of the printing presses is limited. And that is what is causing this problem.
In fact, it's that issue that I want to pursue with you, Abhishek Singhvi. I want to stick for a while to this lowering of the exchange limit. Now, originally, the exchange limit, as you know, Mr. Singhvi, was 4,000 and it was once a week. Then it was raised to 4,500 and it was still once a week. Today, it's come down to 2,000 and it looks as if it's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Is this a case of what many people claim is the government contradicting itself? Or is there something more disturbing behind it? Something more sinister that we haven't fully got the picture of as yet?
I think, Karan, can you hear me?
I can, yes, go ahead.
Yeah. Karan, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, please speak.
I don't think you could have answered the question. I don't think you could have answered the question better than is implicit in your question. There are 3 points here, Karan. One, it shows the utter lack of planning, ad hocism and zigzag course of the government. The figures don't matter first. First you have 2, then you have 4, then you have 2, then you have 6 tomorrow, then you have 2.5. You'll change it again. What is this? Did you at all think of this, foresee it, plan it in any manner? Is it some kind of a farman, Tughlaqi farman by any executive bureaucrat who does it? That's the real point. Second, there is of course a very big question mark in law whether you can put all these kind of limits on withdrawals. On your own account, on your own tax paid money, you are putting restrictions to withdraw your own money. That's a larger issue. But I think it is ridiculous to suppose that with people shouting cane out there, virtually on the edge of riot, you do this great ameliorative measure by reducing 4.5 to 2. I can't think of anything more ridiculous. I would have understood an increase. That itself would have been ad hoc and zigzag every day. But a reduction, and do you think, as you put it rightly in the beginning of your question, is there a remote nexus that will achieve the object for which it is being done? I think there's a lot this government has to answer for the kind it is functioning without any thought.
Let me put that to you explicitly and bluntly, Kirat Somaiya, before I go to the others from the opposition. Many people believe that this reduction to rupees 2,000 once in a lifetime, and I emphasize that as well, is a sign that actually you don't have enough cash. Otherwise, by this stage, one would have expected there would be increases in the limit, steadily increasing the limit rather than reducing it. So if you're reducing the limit, you're clearly suggesting you're putting restrictions on people drawing their own money themselves because you don't have enough cash.
I think what you said, that's what government is doing. My friend, colleague Gujral has said the same thing. To withdraw from your own account, the limit is being increased regularly.
No, forgive
Today
me,
it is
sir.
an announcement
The
that you can withdraw 2.5 lakh
on
from
how
your
much
own
you can
account.
change of your own money has been decreased. From 4,500 once a week, it has come down to a single once-in-a-lifetime transaction of just 2,000. Therefore, if people have legitimate money in 500 and 1,000 rupee notes, they can only exchange 2,000 of it. That's all. You're insisting that they should then deposit the rest, and if people don't have accounts, they can't deposit it either.
Deposit in your bank account.
All right. Let me take up that point.
If you have legitimate money, you can deposit up to 2.5 lakh. Nobody is going to question you.
Well, this is the issue
So
I
you
want to
can
take
deposit
up.
in your bank account.
Let me take up that point with Mohammed Salim.
Have been abused, misused.
Let me take up that point with Mohammed Salim. What you're hearing from Kirat Somaiya is it's only a limit of 2,000 on exchanging. If you have more, you can put it in your account. Before you answer, I'd like to put some facts to you to help the audience understand why even that is not a solution. 90% of all transactions in India are conducted in cash. Secondly, 85% of all workers in India are paid in cash. This means there will be many people who will legitimately hold more than 2,000 in the old currency and need to change it. Secondly, as your leader pointed out in the Rajya Sabha yesterday, 81% of the population is not adequately covered by banking facilities. So these people may not have bank accounts and may not be able to deposit their legal money. Their only way of using it is to queue up and change it. Now, if they can only change 2,000, and that too just once, what happens to the rest of the legal money they have? And what happens to their capacity and ability to live thereafter?
That's the question. And I find, unfortunately, both Mr. Somaiya and Naresh Gujral very confusing. Naresh Gujral ji is saying government is taking proactive. Is it proactive? 2,000, 4,000, 4,500. When he raised this point, then marriage, he himself claims, after he raised this, government takes a decision. So how can you not anticipate one thing? Then our finance minister said it's a well planned, 2 to 3 days. Then he said 2 to 3 weeks. Prime Minister is saying 50 days. That is this year end and next year, early next year. Now coming to the cashless society. As you rightly pointed out, entire rural India and particularly the small cities and even in metro cities, the poorer, the lower middle class and a part of middle class, this cash is handy for them for every day-to-day transaction. Now you ask, you have money, but it's a compulsory deposit scheme. You come to the bank, your hard-earned money, you put inside. The person who have fixed deposit, white money, he want to cash it, but you say you put a limit on that. How can you come to that, do that? And then with 2,000 in a week, how you manage your day-to-day things? You have to pay to the hospital. Hospitals are not accepting that. You have to pay to the hostel. The hostel is not accepting 5,000 and 1,000. So even if you have 500 and 1,000 currency notes, that is white. So instead of taking on the black money holders, you are punishing the common people. Okay. It's a collective punishment. You see the thousands and thousands of people waiting outside the banks and ATMs. It's like British days. You are punishing the entire village. You are punishing the entire population. And you are rewarding those people who have stashed their money outside the country, offshore account, those who are using promissory notes. And Prime Minister is saying you use plastic money. What is this? What is the coverage?
Jay Panda.
Why, had there been the chance, people would not come and spend whole day and dying.
Jay Panda, I want to illustrate the actual problem this reduction of limit to 2,000 has created by talking about your state. What's worse is that after the demonetization happened, the RBI then moved to take away permission for rural cooperative banks to either exchange old notes or even to accept deposits of old notes. As a result of which, your Chief Minister has written what your colleague Pinaki Mishra called on this show a desperate letter to the Finance Minister to point out the incredible distress in rural Odisha. Now, if on top of that already existing distress, the actual limit to exchange is reduced to 2,000, the government is sharply increasing the pain and suffering for rural Odisha.
You're quite right. Naveen Patnaik has continued to support the principle of the ban of the old notes, and at the same time has pointed out very strongly that we need to use the rural cooperative banks to alleviate the difficulty that people are facing. You know, there have been newspaper articles about this in the media today, that the concern I think that the RBI is facing is that some of these cooperative banks are not computerized, so there is scope for abuse. So some via media has to be found to ensure that people get their money without scope of laundering of large scale of money. And I want to reiterate something, Karan. All the difficulties that are being pointed out, and you have pointed out many of the legitimate difficulties, these are all good arguments to say that the black money problem is intractable, we should not touch it, we should just reconcile and live with black money in this country. But I think there is equally a fairly large sentiment across the country that this is damaging the country in many different ways. It has to change. And so that brings us to the issue, could they have planned it better? You know, I suspect that if they had planned it any more in detail, the news would have leaked out and defeated the purpose.
Can I stop you there? We're moving into a different discussion, and actually that can be countered very effectively because we countered that viewpoint yesterday very effectively. Let's not deflect onto that. Let's stick to the confusion created by the 2000 because it's a very meaningful one. Naresh Gujral, let me bring you in on that particular reduction. Because, you know, it's not just a limit that you've placed.
So let me answer that.
But I'll come back to you. I'll come back to Jay Panda. Let me just go to Naresh Gujral so that he speaks on behalf of the government or at least the alliance. It's not just a restriction you've put on the amount of money that can be exchanged. You've also put restrictions on the amount of money people can withdraw even by check. For example, you think it's a great achievement to say people can withdraw 2.5 lakhs of their money for their weddings, but why a limit of 2.5? Because the government has repeatedly said, including today, there is absolutely no shortage of cash. If there is absolutely no shortage of cash, why are you putting restrictions on how much people can withdraw by check from their own accounts? The only reason you put a restriction is because you're short of cash. And I can give you many good reasons why you are short of cash, but then you must admit you are. You can't say you're not short of cash and at the same time put restrictions on how much I can withdraw of my own legitimate money.
Karan, two things. First of all, let me tell you that even my Chief Minister, Mr. Badal, has written to the Prime Minister and to the Finance Minister that the cooperative banks must be allowed to function because otherwise it's causing huge distress amongst the farmers. As the things stand today, you can deposit the money in a cooperative bank, you can deposit cash, but you cannot withdraw. Obviously, the government has done it to prevent money laundering, but some wire media has to be found. Second, as things stand today, you can exchange 2,000 rupees. But let me tell you one thing, you can deposit as much as you wish.
But you can't withdraw as much as you wish.
Where did you get this money from?
But you can't withdraw as much as you wish. And it's your money.
I'm coming to that. I agree you cannot withdraw, and you are absolutely right. Obviously, there is a shortage of cash currency in the system.
Thank you.
I am not denying that. I don't know what the government officials have said, but this is very obvious. And I know for a fact that the printing presses are working overtime to print as much cash as they can, but there is a shortage of cash.
Thank you, Mr. Gujral. I applaud your honesty, but the truth is what you've just admitted, that there is a shortage of cash, is not what Mr. Shaktikant Das says every day. It's not what the finance minister says. They repeatedly tell us there's no shortage. And let me explain why there is a shortage, and then I'll take a break. Something like 2,300 pieces of currency were withdrawn in one fell swoop on the night at midnight on the 9th. Now the mints, both our mints taken together, can only produce 300 a month when they're working flat out, and in one case when one mint is working in 3 shifts 24 hours a day. So if the rate of production is 300 a month, and even if you began production 2 months ago, you still can't have enough cash. Those facts are public knowledge. Why doesn't the government just admit it and get some sympathy for its honesty rather than claim there is no shortage of cash and yet put restrictions and then get caught in its contradictions? That's a question I leave for the audience to consider, because it comes right to the very core of why this government today has a problem. I'm going to take a break and come back and ask, what is the impact on the retail situation? The CII president said that it could be that 50% of retail is suffering, and beyond that, what about Mamata Banerjee and Arvind Kejriwal's threat to hold nationwide protests if the whole demonetization is not rolled back in 3 months? Is that justified politics or potential blackmail? We'll be back in a moment's time. See you in a moment. Welcome back. You're watching To The Point, and we're discussing demonetization on day 9. Kirat Somaiya, let's come to another aspect of the problem, which this time could possibly seriously damage the economy. The president of the CII has said that it's possible retail trade is down by 50%. The Economic Times says today that business in Kirana stores has fallen by perhaps as much as 70%. This will have a huge impact on economic activity, which in turn will affect third quarter results, and that could damage growth. How worried are you?
I think, Karan, it seems we are too simplifying the thing. Presently, it is a liquidity which the people do not have in hand. Once they get back the liquidity, your money is not freezed at all.
But when will they get it back? The question, Mr. Somaiya, is when will they get it back? And if it takes too long, this damage will happen.
That's why I tell you, within a week or two, the flow of currency will start flowing in. So that's why once again the purchase which has been postponed.
No,
See, it is postponed. Nothing
Mr.
more
Somaiya,
than that.
Mr. Somaiya, let me tell you why your confidence may be unwarranted. On day one, both Arun Jaitley and Shaktikant Das said that within 2 days or 3, the ATMs will be functioning. Today, the government has admitted that only 22,500 are functioning. That's 1/10 of ATMs. If it's taken 9 days for 1/10 to become functional at that rate, mark my words, at that rate, it could take 90 days more for all of them to be functional. That's why people are concerned.
No, I certainly do agree with your concern, but the main thing that the cash, the currency reprinting, it is taking little time. Time means that the flow of that flowing in, when it started in, the bank people can withdraw from the bank, and that's why the repurchase will get started. It may be what we expected, or the system might have expected 2 weeks. It may go till 3 weeks or 4 weeks.
All right, it may go in 3 weeks and 4 weeks. You say that rather blithely. What you don't seem to take into account is 3-4 weeks is 3-4 weeks of pain, falling economic activity, collapsing demand, that could hit production, that could hit growth. Abhishek Singhvi, let me give you one more reason for concern. The Economic Times today says that only 1%, just over 1% to be accurate, of stores have non-cash modes of payment, such as credit and debit cards, e-wallets or meal coupons. So would you say the statement made by many in the government, if they can't spend paper, let them spend plastic, is not just a sad imitation of Marie Antoinette, but it's actually utterly unrealistic?
It's laughable. It's a cruel joke, Karan. There is no economy in India. It's an imaginary economy in the minds of the Prime Minister and the senior ministers, if they say that. More than that, even where people are prepared to pay by card, and that's a reality we all know, your plumber, your contractor, your other outsourced person says himself, and most people are ready to pay in cash because of the taxes. You have to pay him a 18% VAT or 18% GST or 18% service tax or some such thing. And therefore, unless the taxes are synced, this whole dream of a plastic economy is nothing but absolutely a pipe dream.
Okay.
And let me tell you, you just gave a figure of salaries being paid in this country. In all places, and you've got those articles published now, from Ichalkaranji to Coimbatore to Tirupur, you are having people who have no demand left in their hands. So it's easy to say it's being postponed. But when demand at the level of 86% money sucked out and not in the hands of salaried people, is being sucked out of the system, how long will you take? You might end up having a 0.5 to 1% cut in the GDP.
Okay.
I don't think the Prime Minister ever thought of such a hit wicket or such a self-goal. Did he think it out?
Jayapanda, illustrate for us what the situation is in rural Orissa. Illustrate for us what is happening to the economy of rural Orissa. To what extent has demand fallen, and to what extent has that hit the economy?
I'll answer that, but Karan, let me quickly answer the earlier question which you told me you would let me answer, which is the reduction to 2,000 rupees withdrawal. You know, this is a massive enterprise, and it would be unreasonable to expect that every last detail could have been planned ahead of time. So these course corrections are completely rational. As you go along, you see bottlenecks and you course correct. If these course corrections were not being done, there would be accusations that the government is being too rigid. So I expect the limit will be raised again once more number of ATMs are reconfigured, and it will not be linear. The rate I expect will improve, but be that as it may. Now you asked about rural Odisha. Yes, of course, we have people that are hurting throughout the country, and particularly the poor people who live on day-to-day earnings have difficulties, which is why we are stressing on the use of cooperative banks and other means to facilitate money available. But keep in mind something. You know, I spend a lot of time in rural Orissa, and the large majority of poor people don't deal in the high denomination notes. They deal in the smaller denomination notes. Albeit, even the smaller denomination notes are under pressure today because everybody is trying to get hold of them. I expect that if the liquidity problem gradually starts easing in the next week or 10 days, then the impact that you talked about in terms of consumption, and I agree, there is a short-term consumption hit. How long it is, whether it will be a quarter or 2 quarters is anybody's guess. But please remember, if you do a Pareto analysis, 80% of the black money is likely to have been with only 20% of the people holding them. So the poor, the lower middle class will be purchasing again once the money flow resumes in the next week or 2 or 3. The real issue is high value items, people who used to buy land or real estate, people who used to buy jewelry, how long that will take to recover, because a lot of that was being done with black money.
I just want to underline for the audience, how quickly things get okay depends entirely, as
my point was that the vast majority,
when liquidity becomes normal. If it happens in 2-3 weeks, the hit will be minimal and easily taken care of. If it takes longer, the hit will be much worse. That big if is the answer we don't have. Naresh Gujral, let's come to what Mamata Banerjee and Arvind Kejriwal said today at a rally in Delhi, and they've repeated it frequently on television. They've demanded that demonetization be rolled back in 3 days flat, and they've said if that doesn't happen, they will undertake nationwide protests. Do you view that as legitimate politics or incipient blackmail?
Karan, let me first answer you raised that issue about by when will the liquidity come into the system. I spoke to the finance minister today, and he said roughly 14 lakh crores will be removed from the system, which are in 500 rupee notes and 1000 rupee notes. And roughly 11 lakh crores will come into the banking system by the end of this month.
That's his assumption.
So the gap would be just 3 lakh crores by the end of this month.
That's his assumption.
No, the finance minister,
he has no idea what is the quantum of black money that will be extinguished. He's estimating that it will be 3 lakh crore. It's an assumption.
Why do you presume? Of course they know. He did not say the quantum of black money. No, sir. He did not say the quantum of black money.
No.
He said the quantum of 500 rupee notes and 1000 rupee notes.
Yes, I understand,
in the banking
Mr.
system.
Gujral. I was saying to you that the difference between
11
the
lakh
14
would be
lakh that
by
is
the end of this month.
What I'm saying to you is the same thing, just in a different way. The difference between the 14 lakh that has been demonetized and the 11 lakh they believe that will be deposited is roughly 3, and that 3 is the black money. And he can only say it will be 11 that is deposited if he believes that 3 will be extinguished. That's why I'm saying it's an assumption.
No,
but anyway,
you're not getting my point.
Let's come to
You are not getting my point, Karan.
Come to Mamata Banerjee.
No, you're not getting my point. Let me complete.
But quickly, please.
No, one second. I'll come to that. 11 lakh crores of new money printed will be in the system. That's what he said. As far as Mamata Banerjee and Kejriwal are concerned, they have always tried to disrupt the system. But I think this is sheer blackmail, and nothing is going to come out of it. They can go around the country 10 times, but this is not going to be withdrawn.
Mohammed Salim, your party does not support the call for a rollback.
Government is very clear on that account.
Mohammed Salim, your party does not support the call for a rollback, but the arguments made by Sitaram Yechury yesterday were so devastating, and they clearly suggested that the damage demonetization will do is so serious and so comprehensive that actually a rollback is, from his point of view, the only logical solution. So if you fear such enormous damage, isn't it contradictory for your party not to say you want a rollback?
No, not at all.
Karan,
Being a responsible
elections are
political
coming up.
party,
Actually, that's to Mohammed
UP,
Salim.
Punjab,
Naresh.
and
cause
three
of
other
the
states.
common man, this damage has already been done. The
Sorry.
damage has already been done by the government. Now it's ill-conceived, ill-planned. But the rollback will further damage. The result is not going to come, but still it will be devastating. And that's why what we are saying is, now whatever damage has been done, but come to the rescue of the common people. And government be let the government transparent. What is the crisis in the currency and how long it will take and how you set the limit, you discuss, you debate and you find out solution. Already CBDT chairman in 2012 has made how this demonetization is not going to help to curb the black money, but you are not following that. You are not listening to the experts. You are only following, I don't know, with some Jyotish or someone. But the actual ground reality is this, that you take the cooperative bank network also, you monitor so that money is not laundered. And Mamata Banerjee, what she is doing, it's a politics, sheer politics and bargaining and blackmailing. Earlier also she did it for Sarda, for Narda, for the cheat fund, and BJP obliged it. So central government should not oblige. Now she will extract the pound of flesh as she did for the Narda thing. Black money was there, changed hands. You have the documentary evidence, but Advani committee is not sitting. ED is not following. The cheat fund scams, Arun Jaitley ji obliged Mamata Banerjee, and one by one is getting bail, and it's not being pursued seriously.
Okay.
So this time also, she wants a window so that all the ill-gotten money for TET and SSC examination, so that somehow the central government will give this window. I don't think that this time the government, because it's so transparent and so many people are suffering. So if Mamata Banerjee wants to be with the common people, she should have been in the state where the tea garden plant workers are dying, where the peasants are suffering, where the common people are suffering. Arvind Kejriwal in his own state. Why not Mamata Banerjee is going to the people to her own state?
Let me bring in the Congress party on that very same issue as well. Yesterday, Anand Sharma spent an hour arguing that this was devastating the lives of the Indian people. Today, your leader of the opposition, Ghulam Nabi Azad, even compared the deaths that have happened to Uri and said they were worse. If that is really what you believe is the situation, then why do you simply want amelioration and amendment? Why don't you want rollback? Surely, if this demonetization is leading to devastation, amelioration is not the answer. Mamata's solution of a rollback is more logical and sensible. So if you're consistent with your rhetoric, then you need to follow Mamata's path, not seek a halfway measure because you're scared to stand out against demonetization. You're caught between your desire to be in favor of demonetization and yet to speak for the people in terms of amelioration, and you're falling between two stools.
Not in the least, Karan. Part of the answer is going to be the same. First and foremost, you have to see that if you just push logic to its extreme, are you not going to get a disaster bigger than what has happened? This is now like a scrambled egg. You can't unscramble it so easily. The unscrambling may cause much more pain than the pain already caused. And therefore, it's not so easy to press a button. It's a disaster, which is why we are criticizing it, but it's a disaster maybe compounded many times if we start unscrambling it. You are in the middle of people having new notes and old notes. Now you have a third note. You have a rollback. You have all these policies set back. You will have chaos in the country. You will have riots. You are already on the verge of them. Secondly, today the first and foremost need of the hour, the urgency is what? What is the urgency? Is to give a palliative, a healing touch to the crying masses. I mean, you can start doing all your reversals or non-reversals or partial rollbacks or course corrections.
Okay.
But for the next 3 months minimum, and I completely reject all these notions of 2 weeks, 4 weeks. You have said it just now. These calculations show backwards at least 3 months if we are lucky. Well, who will look after them then? That's the first. And all the Congress party is doing is focusing on their immediate palliative, that immediate healing touch.
All
We're
right.
not here to hold some logic to high standard.
All right, we've run out of time, but what you just said, that demonetization is like a scrambled egg, reminds me of what Woodhouse would have put into the words of Bertie Wooster. If this is really a scrambled egg, what a shame we don't have some sausages and bacon to go with it. It might make the whole thing more palatable, but perhaps this is not the moment for lightheartedness. Yet, perhaps we do also need to keep a bit of humor in our heads, because at the end of the day, when you're laughing, you can put things in better perspective, and that's something that was missing in Parliament today. They need to realize that when there are important issues at stake, emotions sometimes are best handled by keeping them in restraint. My thanks to all my guests for joining me, and if you have been, thanks for watching. Goodbye, good night.